Okay guys, here we go. We are going to review your entire semester 2 in about probably 30 minutes. We're going to start out with the topic of evolution for part 1 of your review. So get your review sheet ready and here we go. Okay, the type of rock that contains fossils is known as sedimentary. There are other types of rock, but they do not contain fossils. All fossils are in sedimentary rock. As you see in this infographic right here, we have the formation of Earth 4.6 billion years ago. So that is how old Earth is. The first types of life do not appear in the fossil record until at the late end of the Proterozoic era. And so then you see life begin to change as we go up in time to today. In this picture, you see a sample of rocks. We have young rocks at the top that were just put down. We have old rocks at the bottom, which have been there for a really long period of time. You'll see in this example some water, like types of rock that were around water at the bottom. So this is probably an aquifer, a layer of water underneath the ground. We have some kind of animal here, and at the top you can see it is now land. So we had water, we had shells, other water creature fossils, and at the top here you have the land plants, etc. Here, this just simply shows you that the younger rocks are up at the top layer and the older rocks down at the bottom. So deeper rocks are older. Let's hit questions 4 through 9. The most recent era down here is the Cenozoic era because this says present. 4.6 billion years ago at the beginning of time, we have the Precambrian era. Question number 5 asks, how many cells did the first organisms have? You can see right here in the graphic that it is one-celled, so they are unicellular. In addition, the first forms of life, although in this picture you see that they have a nucleus, we're talking before that. The very first forms of life actually did not have a nucleus, so those were known as prokaryotes. The next question is all about the jellyfish you see here. It asks whether it is a vertebrate or an invertebrate. I think you all know it is an invertebrate. And then for number 8, it is a multicellular animal. For number 9, we ask you the correct order of appearance of organisms. So for choice A, is it man, mammal, fish, prokaryote? No, man is over here at the end, so that's not the first one. The correct answer is D, prokaryotes, your first life forms, then fish, then dinosaurs, then birds. Skipping over to number 12, the man who came up with the theory of natural selection and defined evolution is Charles Darwin. I like this quote, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." So this quote goes ahead and answers for you number 11. In evolution, is it always the biggest and strongest organisms that win? No, it's the ones that can be receptive to change. In some situations, a spider who is small and camouflaged is the best because it is the most adapted to its environment. For number 13, we have a very simple answer. What is evolution? It is simply change over time. No, I'm not talking 5 days, I'm not talking a year, I'm talking thousands of years. How does this change occur over time? That process is called natural selection. So this brings us back to number 10. You've seen this first graphic before of the beetles who really like the birds who really like the green beetles. And there are orange beetles in the population, but they aren't getting eaten. Over time, over generations, those green beetles are starting to disappear because they're being eaten and killed before they have time to reproduce. So the orange ones are the best adapted to their environment here because they are not being selected for by the birds. Rather, they are being selected for by nature. Nature is saying, hey, you're not getting eaten. You get to win. You get to survive and reproduce. The second graphic shows you how the giraffes ended up with long necks, that the shorter giraffes were not adapted to their environment. They couldn't reach the leaves on the trees. The leaves on the ground were already being eaten by other animals, so the giraffes with longer necks were able to survive, reproduce, and pass on their genes to the next generation. For number 14, we have 3 examples of evidence we have for evolution. The very first one is camouflage. How does camouflage affect someone's survival? Simply not being seen. So this dude right here with his happy little bow and arrow, he's pretty awesome. It's the best camouflage I've ever seen. He is well adapted to the situation. The second type of evidence we have for evolution are called vestigial structures. If you remember, we came up with a little way to remember this, which was take off that old vest. Why is that something good to remember this? Well, remember, these are old structures we no longer need, so that's the old part. One example of a vestigial structures is the appendix in humans. So you get your appendix removed, so that helps us with the take off part. So take off that old vest. Vest reminds us of the vestigial structures. Another example was the pelvic bone that is present in whales, which is not connected to anything. It's simply there. So it's not needed anymore, but still in the body. The last evidence we have for evolution that we're going to go over is homologous structures. So let's write that up here. Homologous structures. Check. Okay. So here you have the wing of a bat. Whoa, hello. The wing of a bat. You have the arm of a human, the leg of a horse, and the fin of a porpoise. All 4 structures look very different, but all are made up of similar bones. So the belief of science is that, hey, these bones came from the same place evolutionarily. So the fingers of a bat, the fingers of a human, the finger, if you will, of a horse, and the fingers of a porpoise are all very similar. Just like we all have very similar elongated arm bones. Another type of adaptation we cover in our class was not a structural adaptation, but a behavioral adaptation. So these are things that the animal is doing with its behaviors that allow it to be best fit to the environment. So there we go. One example of a behavioral adaptation is in this picture, hibernation. And this allows animals to adapt to the cold weather. They're able to go to sleep. They slow down their metabolic processes, and therefore they can survive through the winter. Finishing up the first page, we have 3 questions about taxonomy. So now that we've talked about all of how things evolved, we're going to talk about how we chart that as a scientist. So we have a system called binomial nomenclature. It stands for 2-name or 2-word system of naming. I defined it in class as a 2-word naming system. All animals are given a 2-word name to help identify them. So we are the Homo sapiens. We belong to another group of primates that comes with the Homo prefix. Remember, that means man, and that sapiens means wise. Lastly, for number 18, this system again is called taxonomy. All right, so in taxonomy, we take all living things and we put them into groups. So taxa actually means group. I'll write that for you. Taxa equals group. So all organisms are placed into a kingdom first. So we belong to the animal kingdom. There are the plant kingdom, the 2 bacteria kingdoms, a protist kingdom, and a fungus kingdom. So we belong to Animalia. From there, They are divided into different phyla. We also belong to the group Chordata, those who have a spinal cord. We also belong to the Mammalia, those mammals. We do not, however, belong to the order Carnivora. This is where we divide off from the cats. So the cats are all in the Carnivora. This particular cat is in the family Felidae, the genus Panthera, and the species Pardus. So its binomial name is Panthera pardus. Okay, this is the end of our talk on evolution. We will meet you again for part 2 of our review, which will be on ecology. And part 3 will be on the different kingdoms of life. So happy studying!